just want to go live now?
Yeah, I'm live. Go.
Okay. No, that's live. Let me turn your mic to
It's live right now. Do. Why is it so dark on that camera?
Is it the iris?
Yes.
It's the iris. See, look at me.
It just got brighter.
It's because you fiddled with the iris.
Mm-hmm. Hello, no one. Hello, someone. We are the only ones waiting. That's nice. No one's currently available. Please hold the line. Jeopardy. Danny Romero's there. Hey, can y'all hear me? Check. Hey, we're live. We're live from the studio. Live and rolling. Hello, Chat Noir. Bonjour. Bonsoir. Okay. So, hey, Bill, loud and clear. Good. Yay. Thanks, Roger. All right, people. So, a lot of things have been going on in the last 2 weeks. I was in Europe, not for D&D in a castle, because I'm not special enough. Thank you, Michael. Check is good, loud and clear. But a lot happened while I was in Europe on my family trip. I was in Paris. I was in London. I was in the north of England, in Newcastle area, and then Edinburgh. Well, all good on this end. That's awesome. Thank you all for tuning in. So while I was in Europe, because I'm me, I had to go visit game stores. So anytime that I could find a game store in the area I was in, I would try to make a little side mission to do that. Sometimes I took the family with me if it was conveniently located. Other times the family would be doing something and I would just sneak away. I made my stealth check. I'd sneak away and go to a game store. So I wanted to share a few of the cool things that I found while I was in Europe. And if you follow me on any of the other social media, I occasionally would post things on Twitter or Instagram when I visited a game store. So what I'm going to try to do after Gen Con, when I have a little bit of breathing time, is to, I'm going to try to make like a little recap video so that I could share some of the amazing experiences that I had in my brief visits at different game stores. I'm going to recap right now, though. So a couple of the places, yes, Newcastle is a lovely place. Paris is fun. Did I notice any major differences between UK game shops and US? Yes. So here's in a nutshell. Here's what I found. Almost every game store that I went to was very different from the US. And here's what I mean. First of all, most of the game stores had a lot more variety in what they were stocked with. The games, the variety of games, the variety of accessories, the variety of minis and terrain were just mind-blowing. A lot more variety and a lot more indie games and kind of smaller games. And I'm not just talking about role-playing games. I'm talking about board games and strategy games, the whole lot. That was the biggest thing that I think was a shocker. The second thing was, by and large, most of the RPG stores or comic book stores or game stores that I went to had a lot more physical space, just tons of room, tons of shelf space and gaming space, lots of table space for gaming. And I found that I went at different times to these game stores, and some of them I went multiple times. So when we were in London, I went to a Dark Sphere, and I went in the daytime. I went back the second day at another time during the day. And then the last time I went late at night. And every single time I went, there were people there, like a lot of people there actively playing different games. So I think the third biggest thing that I noticed in terms of differences between the game stores in Europe and the game stores here in the States is that active community, like people really getting together to play. I want to give a shout out to a few of the people and a few of the game stores. So I mentioned I was in Paris. I went to a game store that's been open since 1977 called L'Oeuf Cube. And it was not physically a ton of space, right? There weren't like tables for gaming. but they had a fantastic variety of games, indie games, bigger games, and a well-stocked store that was well curated. I want to say, you know, the variety wasn't just the only component. It was like the quality too. That was memorable for me because I went to that game store in 1984 as a kid. So the fact that it was still open in Paris and still thriving was awesome. That was very reassuring. When we got to London, while I was in London, I went to Dark Sphere, and that place was amazing. It was like a bomb. And just row after row of tables. So there were war gamers there were role-playing gamers, there were card gamers, board game players. Everything was there. They had food. They had, and that was really the biggest community that I saw. I went there 3 different times. But I talked to people there, and the last night that I was there, I actually got to sit in and watch some people playing D&D. And what I found most impressive is that these people who didn't know me, I just introduced myself. I said I was from Chicago. I'd love to sit in and watch. They had started playing, and I think 4 of the players were brand new. They started with Curse of Strahd. So the DM was running Curse of Strahd for them. And the players were, a couple of them were from the UK. A couple of them were from other countries like Spain and Italy, I want to say. So it was a very diverse table. And at one point I asked them, I'm like, how do you guys all know each other? Because they're all different ages too. Some younger, some older. You know, initially I thought maybe they were like university students who were from different countries and met up here. They're all people from different backgrounds. And the only thing that brought them together was gaming, and particularly at this store where they game once a week. So that was a really awesome moment of just recognizing community and like inclusivity. Like everybody can be a part of this scene. It was awesome. Question of curiosity. In the US, military games seem to have a decent sized cult following, like strategy games, Civil War, World War II. I'm curious if that got any presence in the UK. So the short answer is yes. That same game store in London that I saw had extensive tables for wargaming. A lot of it was Warhammer or Age of Sigmar, but there were also some other strategy war games that I saw. There were people playing Blood Bowl. And if you're not familiar with that, it's a game, and I don't know what version they are on it now, but I remember when this game came out. It's basically, imagine like hyper-violent football is the best way I could explain it. And I don't know the game very well, but there were people playing that game actively. So a lot of historical wargaming was going on. But yeah, that was another striking thing. It was just not just that there were a lot of people gaming, there was a lot of varieties of games. Yeah, so I mean, there were a lot of cool things that I saw there. I wanted to buy some stuff there, and literally it came down to cost and also how the hell do I get it back? Like they were selling terrain in this shop that I'd only seen online because the companies are from the UK. So like Foreground. Now I'm drawing a blank, but I mean, there was just a ton of stuff. So that was one place. I want to talk about where I went in Newcastle. So, because I was also kind of very pleasantly surprised with my discoveries there. So one place that I went to was Geek Retreat. And Geek Retreat was a gaming cafe. I walk in, they have like a full coffee and beverage bar, a full like cafe experience. You can order all sorts of different kinds of food, from like snacks to also like actual real food, like paninis and stuff like that. So, and I saw a ton of different ages and types of people playing. There were families, literally families, like with little kids and babies. And then there were like, you know, teenagers and college kids. And then there were like older people. The whole mix was going on. And again, A lot of space, and a lot of different games being played. Very exciting to kind of see that community. I picked up this pack of minis for a game called Agricola, which is made by WizKids. So I'm sure that people know about this game. I've never played Agricola, but it looks like an interesting game. And this little component that comes with 20 extra cards and 5 figures, I can't do anything with it unless I get the Agricola game. So I think I'm going to pick up Agricola and I'm going to try playing it with some friends and maybe with my kids. But the actual secret reason why I bought this was because the minis are so cool. Look at those minis. Cut to a camera where I could see these minis. Cut, 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 cut. Focus. Focus. God damn it, Dave. All right, so here we are. Here are the Agricola minis. Focus more. In all the way. In all the way. Focus. Yeah, look at that. So they're pre-painted, and they're basically like peasants, which if you've watched any of my live games, you know that I have this thing for like townspeople and peasants. I need them in my games. They add realism. So I was tempted to buy like 15 packs of these. So, I mean, you guys can get why I needed to buy these on the spot. And this was 20 pounds. And the pound is worth more than the dollar. So I don't know what the exact translation would be, but I'm guessing it's $25 maybe in the States. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 pre-painted minis for 25 bucks is $5 a mini. That's a pretty good deal for pre-painted minis. I'm just going to say. And again, it's not that I don't like painting minis. I'm just so backlog. I get like hundreds of minis that are unpainted that I still have to paint. So I need something fast that I could use in upcoming games. This was the deal, dude. So I kind of double dipped because now I have these cool minis that I could use for D&D, but I could also get into the game Agricola, and it looks like it'd be cool. So yeah, that was a win. I really liked Geek Retreat. I took a lot of pictures. I'm going to include those in my recap video. And the first person that I thought of when I was at Geek Retreat was Brian. So I'm talking to the employees at Geek Retreat, and I'm telling them about Initiative Coffee Company and how basically like the end goal for Brian is to have the gaming cafe, right? And this was like the perfect illustration of what could be done. And they were saying that this is booming, right? So they have a store in Newcastle where I went. They also have another store in Glasgow in Scotland, which I wasn't able to make it to on this trip. But I was like, what a cool thing. Stop in, geek out. You know, they have all these. I went was Traveling Man. Now, Traveling Man is, Traveling Man is a bigger chain. So they have stores in Leeds, Manchester, York, and Newcastle. So I went to Newcastle. And again, I go to this store, and there's people playing games. They have all these cool games. Now, this particular store, you go in, and it was really long. They had all the same features that I liked about these European gaming stores, where like you see shelf after shelf of games that you may have only seen online or ever heard of. But they have a great variety of like indie games, as well as the more well-known stuff. And well-stocked and well-curated shelves. There isn't just like random crap that's not selling, okay? And then I see these stairs leading down into the basement, and there's like a chain across it, and it's like employees only, and I'm like, And I hear like people down there like actively chattering, and I'm like, something's going on down there. I'm like, the staff members at this place just must get to like party. So anyway, I continue shopping. I find that they have a clearance shelf. And on that clearance shelf, I find this box. Darkest Night miniatures set. Now, I have no idea what Darkest Night is, but it looks like a game. But what shocked me was when I flipped over the back, and I see on the back 30 minis. They're not painted. These are unpainted minis. Are you in there? Are you in it? Focus. Focus. Focus a little more. 30 unpainted minis, friends. And what I liked about these is that they're not just your standard like heroes. Okay. They're a great variety of things, like a tinkerer and an alchemist and all these other kind of minis that aren't just like heroic warriors. So yeah, there was a fairy there. Exactly. So that, I mean, that was just another thing that just popped out of me. I'm like, first of all, I've never even heard of Darkest Night. Never even heard of this game. And I'm asking people about it, and they're like, oh, it's amazing. You should play it. I'm like, all right, well, maybe it's going to be like Agricola, where I have to like play it and try it out and, you know, see if I like it. But in the meantime, I'm going to get this dope box full of 30 minis that I'll eventually paint. And it comes with all these variety of cool things like a mesmer, shaman, seer, a tamer. There's a guy with a whip who's a tamer. You know what I've never done, Brian? You ready for this?
Yeah.
In 40 years of playing D&D, I've never made a character who uses a whip. Not even in the prime of Indiana Jones did I ever make a character who used a whip.
I have an AL character who dual wields bullwhips, and his name is Flame Tap.
Is it awesome?
It's pretty great.
See, now this mini has a whip.
5th edition makes it better because in 5th edition, whips don't deal only subdual damage.
See?
Unlike older editions where they just like...
Yeah, so you can actually whoop ass.
Yeah.
I like that. Alchemist mini. There's a cool Bard mini here, which, you know, is not uncommon. I mean, they have some other things here like Druid, Crusader, Rogue that are pretty typical. But I like the sculpts on these things, and I can't wait to dig them out and paint them up and use them. So because it was 25% off, I could rationalize purchasing it. It was not cheap. It was 78 pounds before the 25% off. So with the 25% off, it was 59 pounds. Let's round that up to 60. The pound is more powerful than the dollar, so I'm guessing it's like 75 bucks. But still, 75 bucks for 30 minis is not that much more than $2.50 a mini, which is a phenomenal deal. Phenomenal. So that's pretty impressive. And again, Darkest Night. So then I'm showing this box off to some other nerds, and a random nerd walking by is like, in Newcastle, is like, if you haven't played the game, you really should. It's fantastic. And then he just walks away, like just some random guy who like saw me, you know, showing the box off to my brother-in-law. So that was another cool game store and another souvenir. I did buy one more mini that I forgot to bring here. I thought he was in here, but he isn't. And that was a Arkham Horror miniatures. So I've seen all these Arkham Horror games. They're like a ton of expansions. I've never played them, though. I'm going to need to go to like a friendly local game store. Or something.
Able to find somebody in the area who loves the game and can come in and run it in the studio.
And run it for us. Yeah. So it was awesome because I found this mini. He was 50% off, and then I bought him, and he's all painted up. Now their base for that Arkham Horror game is huge. I don't know why, but it's giant. So I'll probably cut him off and base him on something normal. But again, here's the Agricola bases. They're like literally made for D&D. So my new quest now is to find these and just buy them up in bulk, because as I was buying it and the guy at the store was explaining to me what Agricola is, I was like, that's cool. I'm going to use them for D&D. And he goes, oh, he's like, shit, I'm going to have to do that. That's a great idea. I was like, thank you.
If only you knew someone who could distribute Agricola locally.
Yeah, well, they're whiz kids. So maybe we'll call them up and then Initiative can carry them. Boom.
I mean, yeah.
Boom. What were you thinking?
Well, I already
the comic book store. Oh, so yeah, I mean, it overall just the entire journey. Oh, now here's where we get to Edinburgh. So I get to Scotland, and you know, this is the big family trip, and we've got an agenda that's packed with visiting cool things. And you know, it gets to a point where you have a limited number of days, and you're like, do I go see an ancient castle or do I go to a game store? So come on, I mean, those are both great choices, but I'm gonna go to the castle, right? You know, do I go to the palace at Holyrood, or do I go walk 7 miles to the game store? I go to the palace. So I didn't make it to any good game stores. Like I went to a Warhammer store, and it was pretty much like what you'd expect.
Not that Warhammer isn't a fun game.
Right. But it was the same experience as like Warhammer in a Chicago mall. So it wasn't like a smaller game store. So and that was like just in passing. There were some other cool kind of geek spots in Edinburgh. There was there was like a Harry Potter kind of store. There was, a couple kind of geek stores, but they were really more like buy merchandise and collectibles. And I've done that to an extent that I don't need to anymore. So yeah, so in Edinburgh, I kind of, what's that?
Are they more prevalent in Europe, gaming stores?
I would say that I was pleasantly surprised with the prevalence of the game stores, their diversity of stock, and the supplies that they had, and how well they're curated. Like, you know what I mean? How you sometimes go in a game store and there's like, ooh, dust. This was like active merchandise, And then the last thing was most of them had a thriving community of like active people who were hanging out there. Has it ever occurred to you that Carl looks like Barry Allen? Yes. People have said that. Aaron Smith, thank you. Somebody, wait, is that Heather from D&D with high school students? Yes, that is Heather. Carl and I are coming to Gen Con on Friday. Yay! So Heather and Carl, if you're watching, you have to get the contact information from me so that you know where to go, because we got badges for you for Gen Con. We are going to Gen Con. Yeah, so Castle. I mean, Edinburgh was amazing. Just like walking through, it was the most medieval kind of old school experience that I've had probably ever. Like I've been to Quebec City, which is literally a walled city. I've been to Montreal, which has like old Montreal cobblestone streets, buildings from like several hundred years ago. But like there were things that I saw on this trip in Europe that were 500 years old. And it was just, like all of the nerd feelings were felt. So suffice it to say, I have an ass ton of pictures. And some of them I posted on like Instagram and Twitter, but a lot of them I'm saving for my like little European recap video, which I'll share when it's done. And again, I want to include a posit about the thriving local game store scene in Europe. It was just so exciting. Like I'm so happy to share that. So if any of you are friends and fans from Europe, send me a message. Shout it out, comment, and let me know what your friendly local game store is, where it's at, and why you like it. I love to give shout outs to that because we're all in this community. So like if you're a gamer and you're traveling somewhere, it's astounding how well received you are. Like nobody in any of these places knew who I was. None of them were like, hey, I watch your channel. I mean, that would have been cool, but nobody knew who I was. All I did was say that, hey, I'm a gamer. I'm from Chicago. I'm in town. I'd love to check out your, and everybody was really welcoming. Like everybody was just so freaking cool and helpful and just like inviting. So, I wish I had more time to have explored more or even gone back to a few of the stores and actually played in some games. But, for a family trip, I'm pretty happy that I was able to kind of squeeze in these experiences and pick up some really cool things. I wish I had the money and the space in my luggage to pick up the terrain that I saw in London, because it was just like mouth-wateringly cool. So maybe another time. All right, some questions from you all. Hey, Bill, you should run a campaign with the group that has to revolve around the creatures of the Underdark, and the characters of the group have to hunt them. Not a bad idea. I don't run Underdark because I don't run anything in the Forgotten Realms, but there is a place in my original world, that has some parallels to the Underdark, and maybe at higher levels, characters will be going there, but it's the kind of place where if you went there from like anything under level 10, you'd probably be dead. So we'll see if they get that far. Hey, Bill, so I started playing and DMing after watching your series. Thank you. And I wanted to say thank you because you guys have been invaluable for becoming a DM, and I appreciate you sharing your adventure. Hey, Joe, that is my pleasure. I'm glad. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing and supporting us. I'm a teacher, so it's in my nature to want to share things that I know. I like teaching media because that's my job that supports my family. And I'm very fortunate to be at a school that has supported us, and we have facilities. While I'm here, let me just say thank you to Blackmagic Design, because Blackmagic Design is a professional film and production equipment company who has donated a significant amount of equipment to our school program that allows us to make shows like this and shows like The Bard's Tale on Initiative Coffee Company. So thank you, Blackmagic Design. If there are any of you guys who are getting into video, who are getting into filmmaking, who maybe even want to do your own live streams, and you want to know about how to get all this stuff going, I do have some plans in the work down the line to start up kind of a tech support. So, we can answer your questions. We can show you kind of how the Blackmagic stuff works, what the pros and cons are, what the costs are, that kind of stuff, So a lot of people feel like, oh, it's too much money to get these things going. Yes, most people can't afford to just go out and buy professional TV studios. But I will say that if you set a goal and you build that goal to the next goal and you keep building up, you could get there. It's within reason. The equipment that they make is actually extremely affordable for what it can do. For professional broadcast equipment, it's extremely affordable. So we're fortunate, like I said, to have the support of our school and our community and Blackmagic Design and other support streams to keep us going. I love hearing about people getting into D&D. I remember my first time playing it. It was so nervous, but courteous GMs really helped. Yes, Ellen, the community is all it. Now, one thing I do want to say while I'm here is a lot of people have said, hey, I really want to get into D&D and I don't know how. And I suggest you go look online, look at meetup.com, look at your local comic book, game stores, even your local library. If you could find people to play with online or in person, great. But one thing to remember is every group has a different vibe. Every group has a different chemistry. So if you go meet up with some people that you met randomly through Craigslist or Meetup, and they're a bunch of dicks, or they're just not very fun to play with, whatever the case may be, don't give up. Don't quit. Just find another group, okay? I've been playing role-playing games for 40 years. 40 years. And I have had many groups that didn't work out, that didn't have the right chemistry. I played in people's games because I desperately wanted to play, and the whole time I wanted to put a bullet in my head because their game sucked. And particularly like when I was away at college, like I was desperate. And I tried gaming with some different groups, and it just wasn't the right variety. It wasn't the right vibe. And there were actually a few that were just straight up jerks, like that would just like mess with you and weren't fun at all. What did I do? I posted my own flyer in a local comic store, actually a couple of them, and even at a bar. And I was like, are you interested in role-playing games? Hit me up. And this is, back when landlines were around. So I put my home phone number out there for people to call. And the people who called ended up being some of my best friends and are still some of my best friends. So you never know. You might have an old gaming group that you've been gaming with forever. Try gaming with a new group. Just for shits and giggles. Just try it, because every group has a different vibe. So if you are one of those people who's just started off, play with your friends. Play with the people you know. Play with your family. Invite other people who you think might want to play the game. You never know. But play. Try different groups of people, and you'll figure out what works for your vibe. Not everybody is into the style of gaming that I'm into. And I, after many years, have come to realize that. Like, everybody has their own tastes. So, but good for you guys to start playing. And if you're one of the people who used to play games and you kind of want to get back into it, do it. Get back into it. It's been one of the best things for me therapeutically in a long time. I went through a period of time where I was so busy with life that I didn't do anything of my own. And it was soul crushing. And I've re-embraced gaming as a way to just make me happy. And relatively speaking, it's a cheap hobby. You don't have to spend a ton of money. I didn't need these things. I bought them because I wanted to, but you know, you could play a game with a set of dice, piece of paper, a pencil, and a book. Like if you're playing D&D, the player's handbook is enough. And if you get into it down the line, and if you have a really vibrant gaming group and you want to keep buying books and stuff, cool. But you can get there. Just take your time. You know, you don't need a ton of money to start playing this game. When I was a little kid, we didn't have all the books. We knew the rules enough to play the game. And if we didn't know a rule, we just made it up. So play the game. Jacob says, I recently purchased the DMG and was already excited to start running games, and watching your videos has been so inspiring and thought-provoking. I'm excited to run my first game. Awesome, Jacob. I've read the DMG. I've read the Player's Handbook multiple times. Sometimes before bed, I'll just pick a random chapter that I need like a refresher on. Sometimes I read the comments on the D&D with high school students games when people correct me for not doing a rule or not doing something right. And that leads me to go reread that section. So, you know, man, I'm 45 years old. I don't remember all the rules the way that I used to when I was like 17. So sometimes I'll just go reread, you know, I'll reread random sections. And that's one of the nice things of having the books. You know, with the Player's Handbook, you could play. If you have the DMG, you could play. So, you know, it's not always one of those things where you have to sit down and read the DMG from the start to the finish perfectly in linear order. You could hop around and you can go back and refresh yourself. That's the great thing. It's a resource. It's not a novel. You don't have to read it in order. It's a resource, you know. So awesome. Let me see what else we got. Stefan asks, have you spoken with the guys at D&D Beyond for some sort of sponsor? You should also check out their app. So here's the thing with online gaming. I want to do it because, as many of you guys know, the cast from season 2 of D&D with high school students is graduating, and it makes me sad. And I want to be able to play with them still. So we want to do D&D with college students, and it would absolutely have to be an online experience. We're looking at different options. We're looking at Fantasy Grounds. We're looking at Roll20. And yes, I haven't talked to D&D Beyond, and I haven't talked to Wizards yet, but it's possible that we're going to have some connections with them. I can't go into specifics yet, but let's just say that a door has been opened and a conversation has started in terms of partnership. That's all I could say right now. So I'll be talking to people when we're at Gen Con, obviously. So we'll see. But regardless of who we partner with, you know, there's going to be a way to do it. I mean, even if we just do like Google Hangouts and we stream it, we're going to have a way to do it online, and we'll do our best to make the production quality good and to make sure that, you know, we can keep it going because, you know, it's been really fun playing with this last cast. Now, just so you all know, D&D with high school students season 3 is happening. And at the beginning of the school year, we're going to start producing all the content for that. Part of that is going to be a whole bunch of session 0 stuff where we meet the cast, the new cast, and you get to know them. And we go through character building and character creation and what world they're going to be in and that whole enchilada. So I think that'll be cool. I'm looking forward to it. Couple spoilers. We do know some of the people that are going to be in the cast of season 3, tentatively. Okay. One is Beecher Dunn, who you might have seen in Carl's game or also in our summer sessions games. He's going to be a senior, and he's been great so far playing D&D, and he's said he's tentatively willing to commit to being in season 3. The other person is Tony Klaczynski, who you might have recognized as the guy in the background playing guitar in both season 1 and season 2. He has said that he's interested in playing D&D during our season 3. And he said he'd be willing to make a bard. So I think that would be really kind of fun. The rest of the cast is not determined. So we're going to be having kind of a casting call. We're going to do not really auditions, but we're going to kind of have like little interviews where we talk with the people about, you know, what they would want to do, how they'd want to play, that kind of stuff. And as always, no experience required. So I like the challenge of bringing in people who have no experience playing the game and seeing what they do and how they react with the game. So I think season 3 has a lot of promise. The setting should be pretty cool. It's yet another continent. I don't want to say continent, sorry. Yet another area in my original world of Cacapulan. So it should be pretty cool. I think people will enjoy it. Okay, where are we at? Something about... Wow, there's a lot of comments. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is really awesome. And I hope it's not dragging, but I do want to address a couple of your questions and stuff. So Dalton asks, Bill, I forgot his name, but one of the players from season 2 is going to Ball State, as do I. What are the odds of me getting in on this college student series? The odds are pretty good. So here's the thing. 2 of my students are going to Ball State. Max Abrahamson, who played Drake on season 2, he's going to Ball State, and he's going to be involved in SportsLink, the broadcasting program there. And then Paul Morehouse, who is kind of the legend here behind the scenes, who really was the student engineer / producer behind the scenes for season 1 and most of season 2. Paul's also going to Ball State. So 2 of my video kids, who also were involved in D&D with high school students, are going to be at Ball State. Now, I don't think there's any reason why they wouldn't start up their own spin-off show while they're at Ball State, because they're going to have the resources of the media program there. I don't know that for a fact, but I could definitely see them starting up something. So we'll see. And if that's the case, it would be awesome to have you as a guest on the show. So we'll see what the odds are of that. Yes, Ellen, the guitar man, that's Tony. Is he playing a bard? Yes. So it's going to be pretty awesome. And Tony is really a talented musician, actually. If you haven't seen his show, he did a music show with him and Heather, and it's on LTTV's YouTube channel. And it's called the Tony and Heather Music Show. So go to YouTube and search Tony and Heather Music Show, and you'll see Tony and Heather and their music show. There's about 7 episodes. And basically they talk about different music things, and then they jam, they play, and they always have a special guest. And I was on a couple of the episodes, and then other students here at the school were on it. So really talented musician, and you should check that stuff out too. Let's see. 5e is so much easier. The rules are basically, do you have advantage or disadvantage? Yeah, I would say 5e is a very streamlined version. And of course, growing up, I played all editions of D&D. I played first extensively. I played second edition extensively. I played third and 3.5 for a few years until they came out with fourth. We tried to play fourth. We did a few adventures in fourth. It didn't really fit our group. So we went on to play Pathfinder, which we enjoyed. When D&D started up the playtest for 5th, it was called D&D Next. We did the playtest, and we actually playtest, I don't know, we probably playtested for a year. I mean, a bunch of times. And then they published 5th, and we started playing 5th. So I really enjoy 5th edition. I think it brings together really smooth, streamlined gameplay. It can move very fast. It doesn't have to be rules intensive or crunchy. It focuses on the narrative, and it's fun. It's fun to build characters in that game, and it's fun to play them. And as a DM, it's fun to build worlds and to run those worlds for my players. So yeah, I like 5th edition a lot. Are your campaigns sponsored by the school you teach at, or is it all separate? It's all separate. So the stuff we have, like the terrain, the minis, 90% of that is my stuff. It's like my personal stuff. We have had some wonderful gifts given to us by some friends of the show. You could see that if you look at the description, or if you watch any of the episodes, we often thank them. But people have donated books, people have donated dice, people have donated minis. So we've been very fortunate to receive that kind of stuff. In terms of sponsorship, the gifts and donations that we've gotten from you guys to the TV club, that's really the only thing we have right now. And that could change very quickly as we talk to different companies and stuff like that. So the channel's growing, and it's all thanks to you guys who are willing to tune in and support the channel just by watching the videos, and by sharing on social media. Like that's really it, you know. I'm not, I've said this before, but I'm not really interested in monetizing my videos. I suppose I could, but it's not, for me, the YouTube channel is just about growing the community, and you know, that's happening naturally as we do more shows and more people tune in, and you know, it's just happening naturally. So that's kind of what we like to do. Somebody asked me if I was going to start up a Patreon, and I'll tell you that I can't say yes or no right now. I am thinking about it. In full disclosure, I'm thinking about it, but I have to be aware of my available time. Again, you know, I'd love it if my full-time job was just YouTube and D&D, but it's not. I'm a teacher, and I am also an administrator. So I have to make sure that my time is balanced between family and job and friends and all that kind of stuff. So there's a chance that I will start up a Patreon. There's also more than a chance that I will publish content related to my original gaming world. That's my dream. That's the reason why I've been working on it for 20 years, since 1998. I absolutely want to publish my original world. And I think the first source book would be the world book. And then after that, it would be a series of smaller source books focusing on each continent. I want to do it right, though. And I want to make sure I have all my ducks in a row. I want to work with a bunch of different artists and pay them and make sure that they have a cut of the royalties. So there's a lot of kind of back-end business decisions and legal decisions that have to be made before that can happen. But please know that it's definitely one of the things that I want to do. And I've had a lot of questions about my original world, and I absolutely want to do it. I want to be able to share it with everybody. And my goal is to make it system neutral. So you could play in my world using any edition of D&D or Pathfinder or really any gaming system you want. I've always built the world to be that way. I started building it without any RPG system in mind. So from the get-go, it's just been about a world. And I think it'll be cool. It'll be cool to achieve that for me. And it'll be rewarding to release it into the world and see what you guys do with it. That's like one of the coolest things that we could have happen. So stay tuned for that. I'll be working this year on those kind of behind the scenes things. How do I donate and send fan mail or art? The best way is to send me an email, thebillallen@gmail.com. And I will tell you where to send stuff. So basically, I'll give you the school's mailing address and who to address it to. It's a very big school, so if you just send something without addressing it to the right person, it might not get to us. But yeah, if you wanted to donate online, in the description of every episode of D&D with high school students is the link to the Rev Track. That money goes directly to the TV club, and that's controlled by the students. So that's our club, and that account is like a checking account, basically. There's money that gets deposited in, and then the students can use it to do a lot of different things, to participate in film festivals and video competitions, to go on field trips, things like Gen Con, things like GaryCon, things like when we go to Las Vegas for the National Association of Broadcasters Conference, and things like buying supplies or equipment or gaming things for the shows. In fact, we did this entire studio renovation with the brick walls and the lights and the carpeting, all with money that was donated from you guys from the first 2 seasons of D&D with high school students. So the paint supplies, the rug, these cool lights, all of this stuff was picked up by those donations. So it's really cool. If you want to donate through the Rev Track, like I said, it goes directly to the club. I don't see a dime of that, and that's cool. That's how I want it to be. But it empowers the students to be able to, do cool things, not just with this show or the D&D shows, but with any programming we do. It could be related to sports. It could be for, you know, Tony and Heather's music show, if we wanted to have a band come in and play and we had to hire sound guys or something. So there's a lot of cool things that the kids can do with that money. VA, I'm guessing that's you, Vance. Vance, you're the man. Thank you. Vance donated a bunch of really sweet dice from Skull Splitter. Let's see. You should see if any of your artistic students want to add artwork for your book. Yes. So in case you didn't know this, I have a lot of artistic students. Heather is really artistic. Anna, a bunch of the students are really, really good artists. So I want the collaboration to be as part of our family as possible. And I have former students who are just crazy good artists. And I have connections and friends who are crazy good artists. So yeah, for the published game material, I definitely want to, you know, keep it in the family. But at the same time, I would love to have a few full page, you know, illustrations within the book that are maybe done by some of the heroes that I grew up with. Like my dream would be to somehow commission like Jeff Easley to like do a full color page or to do the cover of the book, you know, somehow like one of the old masters who's still around. Cause you know, I mean, Larry Elmore, any of those guys, you know, to be able to have somebody like that, even just have like a part of one page in my book would just make my heart sing. So yeah, I definitely want to keep it, you know, in the family. And that's the great thing about the D&D community and just the gaming community in general. There's a lot of tie-in between artists and gamers. So let's see. Anna says, cannot believe Bill went to Europe to buy more minis. It wasn't in my plan. It totally just happened organically. Let's see. The trip was just an excuse to buy more minis. Yeah, well. So yeah. Let's see, what else do we have? Somebody was asking a question about, so Roger asked about any plans doing an online campaign, and if so, would you use Fantasy Grounds? So this kind of goes back to the whole Patreon thing. One of the ideas that I'm considering for a Patreon is like for upper level patrons to be able to participate in an online game. Like I would run an exclusive game every month for the patrons. And I would have to keep the numbers down. So it would have to be like, you know, say I have 8 patrons that are at that pledge level. I wouldn't do 8 people because that would be insane. I would just do 2 different groups of 4. So you'd be in a small group where your character and your participation would have a big impact on the campaign. But again, you know, honestly, there are discussions that I have to have legally too about how Patreon works, how those patrons participating would work, and ultimately the intellectual property. So there might have to be some kind of non-disclosure agreement so that people weren't taking the things that I shared in an online game and sharing them outside of that immediate community. I trust people. You know, my approach with most people is the benefit of the doubt is always that like people are generally good. And, you know, if you support me and you're a patron, you're not going to be a jerk. But at the same time, you know, things happen. And maybe you thought you could trust someone else and you shared this cool map or some, you know, chapter of my book with them. And then they shared it somewhere else, you know. So those kind of things do happen. And I just want to make sure that I'm protected from that. So, but yeah, on a go forward basis, my goal, if we do go with the Patreon route, would be to have one of those levels allow for patrons to be able to play online. And I think that would be cool. And it would just be another great way to kind of test out some of the other settings. My original world is, I envision it being the size of Jupiter. It's a massive, massive planet with a lot of continents and a lot of different original races and that kind of stuff. So, you know, there's so much playtesting that's been done already, and there's so much more that could be done. So we shall see. Blitz Cosmic says, it's funny how you are the reason I play D&D. Oh, thank you. I'm glad that I'm the reason you play D&D. I'm flattered, honestly. Let's see. Tips for beginners who is completely clueless about the game but wants to get in. All right, so here you go. Tips for beginners. Role-playing games are basically tapping into your inner child. You're playing a game and you're using your imagination. So it's like when you were a kid and you would pretend to be, playing. It's theater of the mind. It's you as a DM are running a world where you have ideas for adventures and you have little people that you're going to have in the adventures, and the players are each running a character, and it's an interactive storytelling experience. So no matter what game you're playing, get the basic book, get some dice and some paper and pencils, and then the rest of it's all in your imagination. I could play a game right now. I can invent a game right now with no dice, or with one dice, or one die, or with just a couple dice. So it's not, I'm a firm believer that it's not about the system and the mechanics. It's about the people that you're with. And just, it's like sitting around a campfire and just telling a story. And everybody has a part in that story. That's what gaming's all about. So really after that, it's just, play the game. The best way to learn is to play. And here's a reference. My kids are 12 and 8 years old. When they sit down with a device like a Kindle or an iPad or whatever, and they start playing a brand new game that they've never played, they don't read a manual. They don't go to Google and find a PDF and read the manual for how to play the game. They just play it. And they probably suck at first and they die a lot, but they just keep playing it until they figure out how to play the game. Or maybe they watch a YouTube video to figure out how to play the game. But ultimately, any role-playing game is really just best learned by playing. So get together with your family, get together with your friends, get together with random strangers from a comic book store or a game store or at your library. And if there aren't any existing groups, start one up. Just make a little flyer and post it up in some public place that is willing to host you, like your library or a park district, or even your church. Some people game at their church or through their church. And just post, that you're willing to run a game and play with people and that you're looking for gamers. You'd be shocked at how many people used to play games or have always wanted to play a game, and they're just looking for the right opportunity. It's like Kismet. So just put it out into the world and you'll find people and you'll play. Do it, Bill. Do a game right now. No, Anna, this stream is already, how long is this? Geez, it's almost an hour. Thanks for the response, Bill. Sorry, I was playing Fortnite. I'm actually a cheerleader up all state, so I'm sure I'll see Max. Okay, so yeah, you'll see him around. And you know what? Remember something too, that the people that you see playing in games are normal people. Like if you watch any of the big games like Critical Role or Acquisitions Incorporated, you might think they're famous or whatever. They're just people. So don't be intimidated by like watching a stream online and being like, oh, our game could never be that awesome. It's not about that. Like, just enjoy playing the game with your people. You know what I mean? Don't compare yourselves to some bar that's up here. Just do what you like doing and you'll get there. Find your groove on your own. Bill, any tips for preparing for a campaign as a DM? Okay, so Joe, here's your answer. If you're a new DM, take a bunch of notes. Write down little flavor things, like where are you starting your game? Is it in a town? What's that town like? Is it like a medieval European town? How would you describe the buildings? What kind of people live there? Are there any bad guys there? Are there any good guys there? Are there any suspicious, sneaky people there? And just write down little notes like about the people and the places, okay? So kind of think of your world and the setting first. Then what I do is I start thinking about the adventures. Well, what kind of adventures could be there? It's a small town. There's nothing interesting. Well, maybe the well in the center of town has been making people sick recently. Just within the last few days, people have been getting sick. And maybe you don't even tell people that it's the well. Like you leave little hints. So how do you build that? Maybe the characters come into town and they see they hear through the grapevine that people have been getting sick, right? And there's people at the local inn who are drinking like wine and ale and stuff, and they're fine. But like families all around and animals even have been getting sick. And then it's, slowly kind of hint towards maybe when the players are going to the local general store or the weapons store or armor smith, they see somebody at the well who, just drinks something, right? And drinks, pours a cup of water out of the flagon, right? Nothing happens, and they just assume nothing important happens, right? And then later when they're going to the next shop or they're going back to the inn, they see that same person that they saw at the well earlier who looks really peaked, and they collapse and they're in a cold sweat. So now you've established this mystery, like what the hell's going on? Why are all these people sick? What's wrong with the well? Well, now they're going to want to go investigate what is going on with the well. Maybe they climb down into the well and they find out that there's an underwater tunnel that feeds into the well, and it actually leads to an underground labyrinth, right? So they have to make a constitution check and swim using athletics, and hold their breath, and they have to swim under the water. And, how do they do that if they don't have dark vision? They have to figure that out. But then eventually they come up, and now they're in this underground labyrinth in this cavern, and they find out that there's this secret cult of whatever, pick a monster, orcs, kobolds, goblins. And the shaman of that cult has been making sacrifices, and this evil concoction that he's been making that is giving strength to the underground goblins is actually poisoning the water supply. So I literally just made that up off the top of my head. But now you might say, well, what if they don't take the bait? What if they don't investigate the well? Fine. Then my next thing is pick a random monster, and that monster attacks the town. I don't know how many, but a bugbear. A bugbear is going to come attack the town. And the peasants and the local constables start fighting it. And the people, the heroes of the party, maybe they come to the rescue. And then that in turn leads them to find out that 10 miles north of the town is an old ruined castle that used to be the living space of a duke who ruled over this land. But recently, some of the hunters that have been hunting in the forests, to the north, have noticed that there are peculiar animals in the forest and creatures in the forest recently who they have not seen in this area for decades, like this bugbear. So then maybe you start leading that story thread. So what I do is I build a place, I think about people and places and how I would describe them. And then I come up with a bunch of different adventures. And it's like fishing blind. You just throw the bait out there, you see what the players want to do. A lot of beginning DMs and game masters create one story. And if the party doesn't do that story, they're screwed. They're like, oh, just do the story. That's not how I roll. I like to be fluid and I like to adapt. I want the players to decide what they're doing. Okay, so here's a prime example. I don't know if I've ever said this on camera, but I didn't plan anything for any of the D&D with high school students. Now, you might be thinking that's got to be a lie. It's all planned out. It's not. All I do is build a world. I didn't plan a single thing. I just threw little things out and I went with whatever they wanted to do. I can do that because I've been playing games for 40 years. So I'm really good at improvising and having a lot of different storylines and plots and NPCs just in my brain library. You'll also notice that I don't DM with a DM screen because I don't need it. It's all up here. So I would say if you're a newer DM, write down notes, write down storylines, write down NPCs. And by the way, the DM's guide and the player's handbook both have things where you could like literally just generate a town. You could generate NPCs. You could generate the personalities of different people. You could look online and there's like NPC generators. So if you're not feeling particularly creative, just use resources that are for free out there. And then make your notes and have them ready. And just let your players decide what's going to happen. Just throw them little possibilities. Don't overwhelm them. Don't give them like 15 options. Try to encourage them to follow what they want to do, and then nurture that and provide them with an adventure in whatever storyline they choose. I hope that was helpful. I should have charged money for that, Dave. That was some golden advice. Okay, so let me go back here. A moment. Thank you, Grizzled. You were in the internet, which is basically just code, so you could have run a backdoor script to get you out, classy Bill. How long does it take to set up the world for the first time? All right, let me figure this out. So I wouldn't try setting up a whole world unless you...
30 years.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing my world for 20 years. And remember that I played games for 20 years before that. So don't start setting up a whole world. Just, I prefer the micro idea, like make a town and a little region around the town. Oh, great tip that I learned. Do a map. Just make a map. Or go onto Google and find a map that somebody else made. If you're not making money off of it and you're not using it to stream and it's just for like you and your friends at a table, no one's going to care. So sometimes just looking at a map is a great way to inspire ideas, right? So you look at a map. Yeah, here. So here's the map of the island of Nuwaf Otmai. I made this on Photoshop. I knew I wanted to have some mountains, and I knew I wanted to have it be an island surrounded by ocean, and I wanted to have rivers and lakes. So I just made that, and the rest of it just came together. So I don't even know if you need to start with that big of a space, you know? Think about how much history happened just in the city of London. Literally. Go to the internet and type 1,000-year history of London. Everything in the world has happened in one city. So if you just think about building a city, just one city, with maybe a few small towns around it and some forests and some mountains on one side and a lake and a river, you'll be fine. That'll give you more than enough space. Don't worry about creating the whole world. And then just think about all the different adventures that you could do in that area, okay? Conversely, if you don't want to build your own world, and there are a lot of people who are not into it like I am, then maybe consider, you know, picking up some of the published source book material. That's why Wizards of the Coast makes things. Or go to DriveThruRPG and buy someone's adventures, you know? Sometimes when you're new, it's easier to start off with an adventure or a world that somebody else has created for you, and then you just adventure in their setting. So there are a lot of options, and it doesn't have to cost you a lot of money. There are a lot of free, am I right, Brian? A lot of people just put up free adventures in worlds too, like on DriveThruRPG.
Drive-through has a lot of pay what you want.
So yeah, pay what you want. So give them a buck, you know?
Guild.
Yeah, DM's Guild has some pay what you want. So if you're just starting off and you're kind of like, oh, this is so overwhelming, don't worry about it, man. Just pick up something and use that as a source and start there. Or
go to Half Price Books and find
go to Half Price Books, find a module book from another edition and just
eBay.
Modify it.
Just go on eBay and get half price of the new module.
Aaron asks, what's the best place to buy minis and game stuff? So many options there. Yeah, Initiative Coffee Company will sell you those things. But really, you know what? Like, it depends on if you have, you know, money, if you want to use plastic or pewter. The world of minis has exploded. WizKids has the Nolzur's miniatures, which are really nice sculpts, and they're already primed, so all you have to do is paint them. Wizards also puts out the pre-painted sets of minis. Yeah, with all that stuff.
Menagerie Season 3.
Right. Reaper minis have just a crazy Reaper bones, you know. So people ask those kind of questions. That's like asking, like, is there food? Yes, there's a lot of food out there. It's kind of what you want, though, you know. So in this case, I didn't want to buy unpainted villagers. So I found another game, and it wasn't cheap, but it wasn't expensive. It was kind of right in the middle. But these are painted, so they're ready to go. This box was a great deal with 30 minis, but I have to prime them and paint them, and it's going to take a while, but it was a worthwhile investment. One option that a lot of people do is Mage Knight. So you can buy, you know, you can look online and find people selling lots of Mage Knights. I bought something like 400 Mage Knight minis for $100. So they're like a quarter each. Now they're on those big fat Mage Knight bases. Who cares? Play with them. Or cut them off and put them on your own minis. Yeah. Yeah, Amazon sells bases. You could hot glue them on there, done. A lot of people will repaint them. Or they'll complain like, oh, the Mage Knight minis have crappy paint jobs. Who cares? They're still minis. For the majority of my life playing role-playing games, I did not use minis. I want people to know that. I didn't have all the terrain. I didn't have the minis. I didn't have the Dwarven Forge. I didn't have game mats. We played with paper and pencils. That's it. And dice and books. Fancy dice. So, the biggest part of games is human interaction and imagination. Greetings from New Orleans, says Mark Gump. It's not his real name, but Mark Gump, and he's from New Orleans. That's dope. Thank you. Greetings from New Orleans. By the way, I love your city. I went there. I want to go back again. Might even want to live there if it weren't going to become Atlantis in like 50 years, but that's another story. How have students that have not been involved in these D&D sessions reacted to it becoming so popular on YouTube? Do you have a waiting list to get in? Yes, Mark Gump, I do. I think the students had no idea how big this. I didn't have any idea how big. I have over 10,000. I have almost 11,000 subscribers. Before we started playing D&D with high school students, I had like 1,800 subscribers, and that was just my like DM tips and crafting videos. And now we're at almost 11,000. So yeah, it's been a big thing, and I am pleasantly surprised, and I think the students were pleasantly surprised. And I think that they dig it. They like it. They like the fact that this game actually ended up being fun and not just an excuse to avoid doing harder projects like, music videos and short films. So they really like it, and I like that they like it. And it's spun off into so many other cool things too, like Gen Con, like Gary Con, like Lion Con. We started up our own convention. That was like amazing. And we had like over 300 people at the peak, which was really cool. And that was a whole community of people, not just the school, but Brian and Initiative Coffee and all the Initiative Coffee people, and Danny from Chimeras and all the other sponsors and vendors and participants, and James Azrael from the Horror and Sci-Fi Prop Preservation Association, HSPPA. So like all these other people, our friends at Fair Game, like all these groups of nerds and geeks that came together to make LionCon happen, and next year is going to be even better. So yeah, so much coolness. And there is a waiting list to get in. If I could play a game every day, I would, but waiting lists. You have died, game over. I'll light the fire to burn your sheet. Brock, I used to do that. Let's see. After meta moment, there's some zombies in the bottom of this well, aren't there? There could be, Ellen. You know I love my zombies. How do you account for all the possible routes that the players might create? Like, what if someone in the group decides to kill the main quest character and it ruins your plan? That's why I don't make plans, Joe. I like Bruce Lee said, be water. Just, hit them hard, pull back, take it easy, nurture them. Be the tide. Go around, go through, go under, go above. Just follow their cue. Did I plan for season 2's cast to turn into a bunch of murder hobos? No, but they just did. They just started, like, for no reason at all. Sean just decided to poison the Reeve. Why? He didn't do anything to you. He just did it. And then they went upstairs and robbed the Reeve and lit his house on fire. And then just one series of murder hobo after another. They killed constables, all these things, right? And now they're facing the consequences of that. And in a long-term campaign, they definitely would face the consequences. Now, I will say one thing. I let the newbie players make mistakes on purpose. And yes, the whole time I'm grinding my teeth and cringing because I want to tell them that that's not what their character would do, but I want them to learn that themselves. So sometimes the best way to learn is to fail or learn the hard way. With a more experienced group, if a player wasn't playing their character the way that their character was set up with their background, their class, their race, and their concept, I would call out BS on them and be like, dude, come on, your character really wouldn't do that, would they? So, with a more experienced group, you can kind of like meta moment and just be like, you guys, if you want to be dicks, I'll just run like a pure chaotic campaign, but let's look at our characters. DMs have responsibilities, but players have responsibilities too. Players need to be ready for every game. Like, have your crap together. Make sure you have character sheets and dice and pencils. Like, that's your job. Also, review what your character can do. Know your skills, know your spells, know your special abilities, know the languages that your character can speak. Try to think about your character and how your character would act. Like, that's what I do when I'm playing. That's why I play my character pretty consistently, because I get my mindset into that character and I'm prepared when I go into the game. A lot of players don't do that, and it's their job. They should be prepared. So no matter what game system you're playing, the players have a responsibility to be ready too, because the game master or DM, they put a lot of time into making this game happen. So the players owe it to that person to bring their A game. Just like any team in sports, be ready. Natural GMing, just an improved scenario out of the blue. Yep. That's what I'd have to do. I'm not prepared for everything maple sauce, but I try to just be flexible. I keep an open mind, There have been some things where I totally wasn't prepared, and I just had to think on the fly. And you know what, if you're a new DM or GM or storyteller and you're stumped, sometimes that's the best time to be like, okay, guys, let's wrap up this session because I need time to prep for the next one. And then, play Monopoly or play a board game. Let's see. I'd use a Tarrasque instead of a Bugbear. Yeah, well, all right. So Brock, in my 40 years, I've fought a Tarrasque once. And that was the Gaming Weekend campaign. We were all 15th level or maybe higher, 16th or 17th level. We were pretty powerful by that point. And even then, it was a tricky scenario. So if talking won't do it, just kill stuff. Can't see why Carl became a murder hobo. Yeah, I got to agree with you there, Grizzled. But how do you account for all the possible routes that players might take? Yeah, we talked about that. Anna and Heather, will you two continue playing D&D? Anna will. Anna's going to eventually finish her game, and then you'll see that online someday, maybe. Roger says, I got my 2 daughters involved in D&D, and they love it. Awesome. Yes. Way to go. I've been teaching my kids how to play D&D since the youngest one was 3, and they love it. I need to make more time for them. And I've run games for their friends too. So sneak peek, we might be doing D&D with kids next year. I have to talk to parents and get release forms and all that kind of stuff. But you'd be shocked at how well some young kids can play because they are not encumbered by self-loathing and confidence issues. So they just do stuff and they work together really well, and it's awesome. So yeah, good on you, Raj, for getting your girls to play. It's a great brain development. I always tell people that I owe much of the success of my life to gaming because it helped build my vocabulary, my love of literature and literacy and writing and creative endeavors and history. I love history and cultures and all that kind of stuff, and religion, because D&D gave me a taste for it, and travel. Everywhere I go, I have thousands of pictures that were just game inspiration pictures. I have a whole folder just of pictures of cool doors from Europe. So yeah, there's so many cool advantages. And math, basic math. I can calculate simple math things really fast thanks to dice and D&D. Why don't you do many enchanted weapons? Tenacious, I will answer that question by simply saying this. In my game world, arcane magic is, on some continents, non-existent. On other continents, very rare. And thus, enchanted weapons are very rare. It is entirely related to the deep, deep history of the world, and you will find that history out in either more games online or when I eventually publish the source book. Thank you for asking. I want to see a murder hobo campaign called Hobo Heaven. Basically, just kill all of the things. Brock, that could entirely happen. I will not say that that will never happen because it could happen. Who knows? Anna says, yay, now that you're back, I can get my friends' schedules and, reserve the studio and everything. Except for this week, because we're going to be at Gen Con. So maybe next week. Hey, Trodat, what's up? Looking forward. I'm so glad that so many of you guys have tuned in. This is really awesome. Nice little chat and decompression before the insanity that Gen Con is going to be. Is there a legitimate campaign where you are an even group? I'm not sure if I'm reading that, Joe. Like that I'm playing in. I play in the Bard's Tale on Initiative Coffee Company's YouTube channel. So if, like you were saying, where I'm playing in the game, that's when I play in. So go check that out. If you haven't already, go over to Initiative Coffee Company's YouTube channel and click the subscribe button and watch those episodes. So yeah, that's, I don't really get a chance to play in much other than that because of time. Every once in a while, I will join Initiative Coffee Company's gaming events, but that's been very rare. You know, but they run events locally. So if you're in the Chicago area and you want to meet gamers who are very welcoming and friendly to all people, you could come out to their events. They run anywhere from 4 to 6 events every month, Monday nights and every other Saturday kind of thing. So yeah, that's one way where you might be able to get in on some more gaming action. And if you want to play online with people, including myself, Brian Thomas of Initiative Coffee Company has launched a Patreon. So at the right pledge level, you actually get to participate and play online with the Initiative Coffee Company people and other patrons of that level, which would include me on occasions. So that's another way that you can play if you're not in the greater Chicago area. Okay. Way to keep me hooked. That's for you, Tenacious. Yeah, when I saw the notification live stream, I dropped playing. Yes. So this live stream is also kind of a test. So that's why I want to, again, thank all of you right now who are watching, because we're using some new equipment in combination with the donations that we got from Blackmagic Design to test out how well streaming works. A couple days ago, Brian did a test on the Initiative Coffee Co. Twitch channel, which was a success. It worked. And now we're testing it here on YouTube, which apparently is also a success. So we do have more live streaming stuff coming up. As some of you know, we are going to be at Gen Con. We are the official video production crew for Gen Con. So there are 2 Gen Con live streaming Twitch channels. So if you go to Gen Con's main website, you could find the links to those, or you can go search them on Twitch. We are running the video production for both, and this is sponsored by Blackmagic Design. So if you're going to be at Gen Con, stop by and say hi to us. It'll be your chance to meet us in person. I'll be there. Brian will be there. Elise from Initiative Coffee Company will be there. And of course, the other LTTV crew will be there as well. So it's a great chance to see how all this stuff works in person and also check out some cool game streams. If you're not going to be at Gen Con, watch those live Twitch streams. It's 14 hours a day of live Twitch streams. They're going hard. So the schedule is posted up there, I think, on the Gen Con website. But the role-playing, there's the role-playing stage and then the exhibitor game studio stage.
My understanding, there are also other stages that aren't like official stages.
Right.
Because there's other games being broadcast.
Yes.
From Gen Con as well.
Yes. And
so
we are, but we're
like
like the official thing. And that schedule is just absolute insanity. Like all the big names, I mean, other than Critical Role because they have their own like theater, but all the big names from like Geek and Sundry and Maze Arcana and all those groups, Girls Guts Glory, all that stuff, they're all running games. Yes. And the exhibitor space is also just dope beyond belief. Like we're going to be seeing all the new releases from all these game companies that they're showing at Gen Con. They're going to be demoing those games. And we're the crew shooting the live video and recording it and streaming it on Twitch. So it's just going to be a bonanza of awesomeness. And of course, you know, while we're at Gen Con, we want to meet people and see people and talk to companies and meet with sponsors and all those things that we're going to have to do too. So it's going to be a crazy, crazy, crazy 5 days. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So yeah, that's coming up. And then of course, after Gen Con, Brian and I are going to try to do the first live episode of...
We'll be here and we'll be in studio,
yeah.
But maybe we'll be awake.
Yeah, maybe we'll be awake. We're going to try to do the first live episode of Rise and Roll, which is our morning gaming geekery talk show. So we'll be live on Rise and Roll the Monday after Gen Con. We're going to do a Gen Con recap. We're going to drink coffee because it's going to be early in the morning and we're going to be really tired. And maybe do some show and tell. Like if we come back with some swag from Gen Con, we could share it with the audience and talk about that.
On the Initiative Coffee Code, Twitch, and YouTube.
Yes, the Initiative Coffee Company Twitch channel. And then later we'll repost it to the Initiative Coffee Company YouTube channel. But you know what? I want to hear from you guys too. So, you know, one of the things that we're experimenting with is Twitch or YouTube or both. You know, what do people prefer? They're different audiences. Obviously, we're pretty comfortable with YouTube, and Twitch is new territory for us. But if you guys think that Twitch would be, you know, something we should do, stop on over to the other social media. So you could follow Initiative Coffee Company on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and let us know. Shoot us a message, send us a comment, whatever, and let us know, you know, Twitch versus YouTube. What do you think? But the point is, no matter what we end up choosing in the long run, the idea is to do a live weekly morning talk show that's related to all of geekdom, all about gaming, all about, you know, whether it's with things directly related to gaming and tabletop stuff or indirectly, maybe related to comics or movies, you know, anything that's in the genre. That's kind of our wheelhouse. But Rise and Roll, if we're alive still, will be debuting on the Monday, August 6th after Gen Con. So we'll have posts on our social media about when that's going to be. Okay, Brock says, I'm more of a YouTube guy, but I have a Twitch account anyway. See, that's kind of how we feel. Dovahkiin Templar, love what you and the school do. Thank you. I love your name and, of course, Skyrim. Vishnu says YouTube. Trodat says YouTube. Ellen says YouTube.
I want to point out that you're currently on YouTube.
I'm currently on YouTube. All right. So we're at almost an hour and a half, which is ridiculous. This was going to be like a 15-minute test, but thank you guys again for coming out and sitting in the chat. I will be back with you for sure for Rise and Roll on Monday, August 6th with Brian here in the studio live on something, Twitch probably. But we might try to do a couple updates from Gen Con for all of you true followers of the path. So stay tuned to both Initiative Coffee Company's Facebook and YouTube pages and Instagram and Twitter and all the Bill Allen World stuff. So I got to close up. Thank you all for your support. Thank you for tuning into this. Thank you for watching all the shows. If you haven't already gone to subscribe to Initiative Coffee Company's YouTube page, get over there and do it. It doesn't cost you anything. And it's fun. So cheers, peace out, love you all. Thank you for tuning in. And that's it. See you at Gen Con.